Hello. Hey guys, you're very welcome back. Murph here again with another video. Today, it's all about getting some of our questions answered. I had the chance to catch up with Jorg, the head of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and Sebastian, the CEO and co-founder of Asobo Studio. In this video, I'm going to go through some of the feedback I got from the two lads and also try and answer some of your questions based on the experience that I had getting to try out the sim. Let's get started.
So I won't hit you with all the questions, right?
Okay, that's just going to be fun.
So what we're going to do, I'm going to answer some questions here, then jump back to Jorg and Seb to get their feedback when they were interviewed. The first question is how much space is needed to run the new sim? Well, due to the sheer amount of data the Microsoft Flight Sim is going to be pushing out to us, it needs the cloud to do that. That means the cloud is going to do the heavy lifting rather than us having to keep everything on our own local hard drives. Think of world updates. Today, we need everything. With Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, we only need what the simulator can see. Asobo reckon an initial install of about 50 gigs, and if we compare that, the initial footprint of Flight Sim 2020 was about 100 gigs. That was just for its own aircraft scenery, mesh, all that stuff. Today, with everything included, it's about 2 terabytes, and that doesn't include any of the third-party add-ons. You have the option to increase your local cache, and Asobo are recommending that we do that. Basically, we keep some space on our hard drives clear, and the sim will use that as our local cache. It'll only need to change when we move to a new location or change our aircraft. What about sim updates on the content manager? We've all experienced issues where it just doesn't load when we need it to load, or the speeds are very slow. Is the system any better? Well, it should be. Because the system only sends what data is needed rather than everything else, that should reduce some of the pressure on bandwidth. Flight Sim 2024, with all the new features, well, is free flight the priority? And how do we get more folks flying? Let's go over to Jorg.
I firmly believe the flight simmers have it right, that free flight is the freedom to do whatever the heck you want based on your own desires. Mm-hmm. And that there's nothing wrong with that, and I think there's nothing we should ever take away from this, and it'll never go away. Mm-hmm. I think there's lots of people that need help, and it's not just the community that plays flight sim, it's also what I hear from manufacturers. Mm-hmm. It's also what I hear from airlines. Everybody says, hey, honestly, aviation is critical to the function of the planet, and we are way behind in our recruiting quotas. So I think people need more aviators and people that feel comfortable in an airplane. Mm-hmm. And I think what we've seen in Flight Sim 2020, we attracted 15 million people. That's not too shabby. Mm-hmm. But do they all feel comfortable? And I think there was a lot of, tutorials is one of those things. We just tweaked our tutorials, and we really thought about, should we make more tutorials? And ultimately, I believe learning by doing is the best way to learn anything. And that requires context. And the context comes from the career system.
So what about the existing user base? Is everything going to work just the way we expect it to?
The existing user base,
yeah,
everyone who's there now, is it kind of fair to say, listen, don't be worried about all of this. It's still what you guys know in 2020.
It's exactly what it is.
Only better.
It's more.
It's more. Yeah.
It's more and better. It's
so
both.
Hardware, all that stuff should work. Everything should. Now,
absolutely. Super. That's why backwards compatibility is important. I mean, they bought a bunch of planes and stuff. Like, mm-hmm. That clearly needs to work. Mm-hmm. It's an established pattern of life. Mm-hmm. I see how people play. Of course, simmers play every day. I think it's probably not a secret. They play every single day, pretty much the same hours. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes fly the same flight paths. You can't disrupt that. This is their hobby, So, no, this is just added. The world is better. The avionics are deeper. There's more planes, and we added some other things. But the other things, some people will opt into them. I think people will try it. Mm-hmm. And will it be for everyone? Nope. Nothing ever is. Mm-hmm. People will find joy, and they will stick with what gives them joy.
What about backwards compatibility for our third-party add-ons?
And I agree with that. And frankly, I bought a ton. I can tell you that. Yeah. And do I want to rebuy it all? No. So it just needs to work. Backwards compatibility was at the forefront of what we said. It needs to work. And there's no reason not to work. So I don't know if you talked to Seb yet, but for example, all the airplanes, there is a legacy flight model. It'll just work. It's the same exact flight model. You can also use the new flight model. For the new flight model, you need to do a little bit of work because it's a little different. But fundamentally, it's a choice. The developer can make a choice. Same with the airports. You can The airport will just port in as it is. If you want to take some of the new materials, yeah, there's some stuff that you need to change. Clearly, you have to remap things, you re-UV stuff, and it's some amount of work. It's bad on, but it's a choice, again. And for the consumer that already bought it, no action required.
Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is the 12th installation to the franchise. What's it all about?
It's, you feel sort of a historical responsibility. And I would say, what you said about Flight Sim 2024, we will not make a product that is, as a new product, that is not a big step forward. That is what we always said. Flight Sim was leaps forward, try to stay cutting edge, do what technology actually allows us to do, because honestly, that's what simmers want. Simmers want perfection. Simmers want realism and authenticity and go to the edge, right? Bleeding edge to some degree. And I think that's what we want to do here too. So Flight Sim 2024, as you hopefully saw today, it's pushing almost every aspect of what's possible, sort of near the max. And I think, so that's why I feel really good about it being in an 11th or 12th, in this case 12th entry into the franchise. And that will always be the case. And I think there will be other horizons to conquer in years to come. It's hard to predict sometimes, right? I sometimes say AI will probably go change a lot of things in how we do things in the virtual space. But who's to say? Right now, this is very much a push plane detail forward, push world detail forward, start a career system and see how people react to it, and then we'll evolve from there.
So what about internet? Do we need a faster internet connection? Well, we 100% need internet. It's a requirement of the sim. However, because the sim is now only streaming data we actually use, and that depends on where you fly and how often, well, we should be using less bandwidth. What about water vessels? We've seen them take shortcuts across the land, and the traffic was always a little bit hit and miss. Well, ships are being tracked by real-world data. It's reading its transponder, which updates every 30 seconds. Global AI ship traffic is being used, and the models are provided by Gaia simulations. What about multiplayer? Are there any enhancements? Let's check in with Seb.
What I can tell you is it's on my list of the stuff which I write down when I go to FS Expo and all the events. So it's on my list. I don't actually know if they fixed it yet, but it's definitely in the pipeline, because yes, we have the data. I just last week I was optimizing a scene where there were 93 planes. Okay. So there's definitely the data, that's for sure. I will double check if it's displayed or not, to what scale, but definitely it's on our list. I can't tell. Oh, I need to not shake it. I can't tell how, if it's gonna be for launch or not, but I'm gonna double check on this and follow up.
What about controls and all our control mappings?
So I'm not the perfect specialist. I know a few things. What I know is that we will have a default 2020 style mapping, so that when you come from 2020, if you don't want to change anything, you get the same experience. That I know we have in the box, some sort of like a default. Because basically what's happening in 24 is that you can now have a matrix. You can have a different mapping for every aircraft and every controller. So you can have 50 controllers, 50 aircraft. That's 2,500 mappings. And why we did that is because there's so many new capabilities in the aircraft, right? That we didn't have enough keys, right? Some aircraft have hooks and this, and banner or spraying, or there's just so much stuff. And so we know we have the default so that people are not completely lost. I wanted to keep my default, Control E to start the engine, Y to do slew mode. I wanted to have the same stuff, so that's there. There's also new, because many new people have keyboards which don't have the many keys and the same. Yeah. And they could not fly with the old settings. So I know there's a default one for short keyboards now. Okay. That makes it easier. And I think there's also an all new one, which, for example, some people like to do mouse and keyboard sort of. AZ, whatever. Yeah. That also exists, right? If you want to do, because there's a brief right now, you move around. But that depends. If you only have keyboard, mouse, and yoke, you probably want to do this. If you have a pad, then no, you don't want to do this. So there's a lot more flexibility. I know there's the default 2020 style, so that you don't get completely lost and what is all this. And we're also trying to make it very easy so that, because you don't want to configure 500 keys on, maybe you have 3 devices and 200 planes. It's a lot of, so there's going to be ways to copy from one plane to the other and stuff like that to make it easier. And also I think you can export import, so you can share, and plane makers can make their plane and distribute it with a proposed mapping, right? Okay. So every plane can come with its key mappings, so that you don't have to. But if they say, oh, this plane flies best this way with this hardware, they can do it, and people will maybe like their mapping better than the default one.
What about private servers for multiplayer? Is this something that will be looked at?
So we don't plan for that right now. I'm pretty sure this could be done with SimConnect, because I've seen people doing with SimConnect. I've seen people doing replays. I've seen people doing shared cockpit stuff. So I'm pretty sure that someone who codes, or maybe you could already find this on online, but someone could code a server which via SimConnect shares the aircraft and does some sort of private server. This could be already doable technically. I don't know if anybody has undertaken the
task. There is one.
Okay.
So it's just to see, put it this way, would there be support perhaps from Asobo if they got like 90% of the building blocks? Is there someone that they could reach out to say, hey, listen, we've made this?
Of course, people can always ask for improvements. We've done improvements for people who are trying to do replay things, so I think some of the needs may be the same here. And of course, if there's something missing, or they can always ask. And yeah.
What about shared cockpits? Is this something that will make it for the release?
So we've been working it on the R&D side and still exploring. What we've done right now is we have improved the, I think it's SimConnect, whatever. We've improved the API, so that it's something, because the need of share cockpit and replay is sort of the same. So we've done improvements here. There's already things out there. I mean, a lot of simmers at Asobo use shared cockpit, like prototype technology, and so that could be improved. And we have our own R&D projects. I think it's not going to make release. I would say if we do something like this, we want it fairly polished, right? So that it's something easier to use. And the prototype we have right now, you need to set up servers and IP addresses, and it's a bit more complicated than that.
So outside of the changes to the weather with storm cells, we've seen tornadoes, the new lighting, anything else for the weather? So
live weather was always a bummer because it's live, it's now. And what happens? You come home from work at 9 in the evening and you want to do live weather, you always get evening. What do you do? So now live weather has a 24-hour history.
Okay.
So at least you can go back to lunch or morning or...
Okay. So there is historic weather for 24 hours?
Just 24 hours, yeah. That's why we don't want to say historic, because to me historic weather is I can do 1930.
Right.
No, we can't do historic 1930. But at least 24 hours gives you so much flexibility.
So what about first-person mode? We can actually run in first-person mode, but is there any limits or restrictions?
So the limit on walking distance, it's still discussed. So I think we're gonna remove it, because we had one. I think it was a few hundred meters or whatever.
You're going to get people like... But
we thought, okay, if there's a limit of... the limit doesn't really bring much more. So I think the goal now is to probably remove the limits. You can just walk and... people are not going to walk around the world anyway.
They will.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
They will.
Yeah. But I don't see why what is the benefit of? With David, we went in New York. We landed on the top of a building. There was a helipad. We walked out, and then we walked around the street in New York forever.
So we're going to wrap things up now with a few more questions that came on the last video. The first one relates to tail draggers. Is there any enhancements and any changes to differential braking? Well, I did notice considerable changes to ground handling, and that's all thanks to the new friction physics. Aircraft feel heavier, you can see that kind of tessellation on the ground, and the tail draggers I used, well, they did feel very good. I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. What about VR support? Well, on the day I got to try the sim, VR support was active. There was a Pimax unit there, and I gotta say, using Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 with VR was absolutely amazing. What about scenery? Is it better? From what I saw, there are some areas that are absolutely incredible. The detail is staggering. Other areas have been enhanced, and even those areas perhaps that don't have access to the new thin data or mesh, well, there are considerable visual updates and upgrades, and that's thanks to the new vegetation. What about colour mismatching? Well, I saw some improvements, but I do think this is going to be up to us, the community, to let Microsoft and Asobo know if there's any areas that need improvements. The final question from our last video is asking, is there going to be a discount for existing Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 users? I didn't see any. There was no talk about it, and we haven't seen the price list just yet. So again, we'll have to wait and see. So for this video, thank you all so very much indeed for watching. If you have any questions, well, do be sure to leave them in the comment section below, and we'll try to address them with the next few videos. As always, make sure you hit the subscribe and the notification bell so you know when the next video is live. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon.